And Kiefer Sutherland just yells out or says out loud, "Christ, Eddie, will you zip it?" And the moment I said that, a guy from 2 cubicles away popped his head up and said, "You're talking about Armitage?"
Hello and welcome to another Damn Anime podcast, the podcast that is about damn anime. My name is Nick and I will be your host. Here with me today, my good friend Joe. Joe, how you doing?
I'm doing all right. This is an exciting new adventure for us. So let's see how we flounder.
Let's see how it all falls apart. Let's watch the cookie crumble, as it were. So this is episode 1 here on December 30th, 2022. I don't usually care to discuss the actual date, but I think it's fine for this inaugural first episode. Don't worry if I'm using that word correctly or not. That's not really part of the point. Yeah, so we're here. As I said, my name is Nick, and I'll be your host. I got Joe here with me. We do another podcast about video games called Another Dead Pixel. So, but in that podcast, it's mostly about video games, but it's also about other things, and we always end up talking about anime pretty much every episode, if not every single episode. So we decided that it would be good to just break it out and just do a whole podcast about anime just by itself. I know I've been wanting to do it for a long time, and I think Joe has too. Isn't that right, Joe?
Yeah, it's been on our docket for a long time. I mean, since now that you're free to watch anime and not constrained by judgments of those around you. But yeah, so for sure. I mean, it's been good to welcome you into the anime fold and watch you slowly deteriorate, with your mouse pads and whatnot.
Why did you have to go there? Anyway,
that's a great gift. You should show it off proudly. Just wear it around your necklace, just like Flavor Flav.
I'm cutting all of this. So anyway, yeah, I am a little bit of a Johnny come lately, I must admit, to the anime world. Of course, I grew up watching a fair bit of anime, though not as much as many of my friends did, and especially not as much as Joe has. Joe, you have watched a metric shitload of anime. Am I right? That's true.
Yeah,
right?
it's been kind of part of my life for as long as I remember. I mean, granted, it does help the fact that I was living overseas at a really early age. So, I mean, one of my first action figures was like Voltron and Thundercats, and I had a Atom, or Astro Boy, I guess it is in the U.S. Belt buckle that was holographic. And just because everything in Asia was like knockoffs, they had one holographic side was Astro Boy flying through the air, and then you looked at the other side, and it was Donald Duck. Don't know why Donald Duck, but it was Donald Duck.
It's like
I really wish I still had that though, but it was hilarious thinking about it. Like that's a major double branding there.
Some sort of mashup. I mean, I guess anything to make money and bring the kids in over to the dark side. Yeah, I mean, yeah. So we both watched a fair bit of anime. I've been trying to catch up on a lot more that I have missed over the past couple of years recently. But yeah, so this is a way for us to do that, to talk about anime and express our love for it. I'm just gonna break down a little bit of the layout of the show. So typically an episode is going to boil down to what we've been watching. So we're going to go through the more recent stuff that we've been trying to keep up with, and then talking about what we think is the best thing that we watched that week or that bi-week. I think this is going to be a bi-weekly podcast. Just kind of going through what the best thing we watched over that period of time was, and then after that going into a special topic where we discuss something that is special, something a little bit like off the wall, or going into a bit of a deep dive into something specific about anime. Hopefully, trying to make that interesting and getting a little bit more mileage out of it. And finally, trying to play a game. I've got a couple different game segments that me and Joe are kind of hashing out right now. Sneeze.
Yeah, he can't avoid it, man. It's just
I
it's a
lost it.
curse for him.
I lost it. Oh, I lost it. So anyway, yeah, pollen is high here right now, so it's just gonna be hit and miss. But anyway, so trying to go into a game and you know, doing something interesting with anime as a medium, and just trying to have some good laughs. So that's going to basically be the layout of the episodes going forward. Um, and then yeah, like I listened to a lot of different anime podcasts before we started this one, to kind of see what's out there. I think I listened to I think I don't think it was 30, but I think it was a little under 30 different podcasts, a couple episodes from each one. Um, there's a lot of good podcasts out there. And there's a lot of really bad podcasts out there. So, listening to what is out there, I kind of thought, well, maybe we could do something that would add to um, the good side of the anime podcast. Maybe give people a little bit more value here or there, to try to do something interesting. So I hope that we can accomplish that, and we'll see, where it goes. Um, so yeah. So I guess just we're gonna just go ahead and jump right into it. We're just going to go into what we've been watching. So I guess since I've been talking for a little while, Joe, let's go ahead and do what you've been watching. What has been on the Joe docket for the week?
All right. Well, this is just this isn't actually all of them. So, but these
Okay.
are the ones worth mentioning. Yeah, it's you know, for now, they've one of the ones I've been consistently watching is the Eminence of Shadow or In Shadow, and that one has just gotten dubbed like episode one. So even though they're like 12 episodes in or something like that, 13 episodes in the sub, they're just really behind on the dubbing on this one. Uh,
I feel like
so
you mentioned this before on the other podcast, and
yep,
but so I didn't know that you've been watching it subbed. So you've been watching it subbed?
yeah, I'm pretty sure I mentioned it then too.
Okay, maybe I
Jerk
forgot.
face. But
I can't remember anything that you say.
but no, it's yeah, it's one of those I read the manga. I like the manga quite a bit, and I'm curious how they're adapting it. So far, so good. The beginning is very different, and they are taking some liberties on this one, a little more than others. I mean, I'd say it's like 80-90% the main, like main translation, but it's like they are taking some, some simple liberties, making the whole first episode is very different. But then, it almost worried me for the rest of the series. But they still got the right attitude, the right humor, and for the most part, it all follows pretty similar. So it's it's pretty good. I'm liking it. It's the whole point of it is it's an isekai. The main character is ridiculous. He always wanted to use magic. He dies and what winds up in a world with magic. So he's having a field day. Uh, but he is essentially at all times like larping in his head. It's like he makes up his own scenarios. He's playing a role, and little does he know that everything he's pretty much saying is coming true in one form or another. Like he saves someone, and he's like, "Yeah, this is the work of the Diablos cult," and then turns out the Diablos cult is an actual real cult in his fantasy world and that he's living in, and he's just like every yeah, it's just like it's one of those things that I wouldn't be surprised at the end. He's just willing things to existence, because that's almost how it plays out. But he's oblivious to it all. He just thinks everyone is playing their role. Like, yeah, this is just a joke of a game. Like, wow, they're playing these really seriously, and yeah, so I got to really get into my character. And it's silly, but it's good. I like it. It's funny.
Okay, so he's like
Uh,
DMing, like he's like the dungeon master of his own world. Whatever he
yeah,
kind of says sort of comes to
but
be.
oblivious to it. Yeah.
Okay,
So
that's cool though.
it's yeah. So it's if he was yeah, it's I don't know, it's almost Haruhi-esque, I guess, in similar form. Uh,
Mm.
you know, but that's a discussion for another time. Uh, I'll go with so my next one I've been watching is Chainsaw Man, and that one's been pretty good. I've been doing that one strictly in dub form. I did not. I know nothing about the source material. I know you, Nick, went through and specifically read the entire series beforehand, right?
Yeah, I am. I haven't been keeping up with the new stuff that's coming out. I guess I figure I can just catch up with it anytime. But I did read everything before the hiatus, which I believe the anime. I mean, the anime has a long way to go still, but I believe that is gonna cover at least the first part of the anime. I don't know how far they'll actually go with it, but it does you know it does end on a ending type note. The part that I read to in the manga, so we'll see. But yeah, I mean it is really good. I don't know much. I don't know how I feel about the anime yet. I'm trying to let it cool, but I do like it. I do like it.
What episode have you gotten up to? Do you know?
I am I've been doing the sub and I went through 11, but apparently there's 12, but it's not on. I mean, as of yesterday, I think I checked yesterday. I didn't find it on Crunchyroll. Is the 12th one out yet?
I believe it is now. Yes,
Okay.
so according to what I see here, and they've only done up to episode 9 dub, and so I guess that's the big thing is there's the whole debate to have between subs and dubs and how people feel about that.
Mm.
Uh, I grew up with in a time frame where it was a lot of uh, anything coming over from Japan was generally going to be dubbed, and there's a lot of poor dubbing
Oh yeah, the old
because
days.
you got what you can get, and that was pretty much. But especially when it's just a live action movie, if like whether it be Godzilla or like Lone Wolf and Cub, anything like that, those were you would generally get those. You didn't have a choice of the option. It's like whatever your video store had, that's what you read, that's what you watched, and so it wasn't a like an art piece like it was for Crouching Tiger, where like we're going to only have this in the native tongue, and you're just going to have to read the whole thing. And so I kind of grew up getting used to bad dubbing, and some of
Right.
it's enduring to me. Like I absolutely love the old Godzillas, poorly dubbed.
Yeah.
And then there's some old anime that I can only see it that way, like Sailor Moon and stuff like that, because or like I actually really like slash hate the Yu-Gi-Oh dub that came over to the US because that was just atrocious, but it was great. Um,
Yeah, I think
so
that one
yeah,
has some pretty famously bad dubbing and has some ridiculous voices that they attach to those faces. But yeah, I see that a lot in various anime videos. They're making fun of that.
but for me personally, I think it's whatever it's it doesn't matter. It's whatever you want to watch it as. I mean, I know some people like to just go wholly like native source, and they're like, yeah, this is the way it aired, and this is the way it's meant to be. I'm like, I'm not a purist in that form. If it's a really good series, I will go ahead and watch it subbed.
Yeah,
And sometimes if it gets dubbed afterwards, I will then I might switch over, like it, depending on how much time I have, or I'm just curious. Like, okay, well then how is the translations? I mean, if they localize it really well, then it might be worth just because some jokes are just not you can't translate it the way that it originally was. So you're gonna have to entirely make up a new joke for that punchline. And it's really neat to see how they do that. And dubbing's also gotten really good compared to how it used to be. I would say
oh
the
yeah.
late 2000s,
Mhm.
dubbing finally hit a good stride overall. So it's not like it used to be, but
Like I don't know how it
yeah,
is in other languages like Spanish or like Mandarin or anything, but like the English dubs, you can tell that on the bigger shows, especially, and a handful of the less well known shows, they really go above and beyond and try to make it their own. I mean, like I only watched a little bit of Kaguya-sama in Japanese, and I thought it was good. But you told me, hey, the dub for this is actually really good, and they go above and beyond and try to make it better than what they were kind of given. And I was like, okay, so I'll try it. So I did, and it's an amazing dub. It's fantastic. Um, so like nowadays, I try to be a little bit more open to the dub, especially if it's a show that you told me is good, or if it's one that like I don't know, if it's a show that I'm not particularly planning on focusing on 100%. Like there's some shows that I watch while I'm cleaning my house or whatever. And so those I obviously, since I don't speak Japanese that well, I've kind of got to turn to the dub for that. But I'm really usually pleasantly surprised. Usually they're really good.
Yes. So as far as and this goes, Chainsaw Man's done pretty solid, and I don't mind. I don't feel the need because I don't have that attachment to the source material to watch it, the newest thing right when it comes out. So I don't necessarily need it in uh, that format. And but the reason why I was watching the Eminence Shadow, subbed was because there was there was no dub, and since I was attached to the source material, I'm like, the manga is funny, so why not give it a shot? And I followed it that way. So that's why, for me, I switch back and forth on which ones, but I'm not really particularly uh attached to anything per se.
Hmm.
So those are the just. Do you want me to go through the rest of the anime I've been watching right now, or do you want to give some stuff
I think
shout outs?
maybe I'll talk about a little bit of about
Sure.
what I'm doing, what I'm watching. So yeah, so I've actually had a chance to finally watch a good bit of a lot of different things. Um, I finished up Elite Classroom. I was almost all the way through with that, and then had to jump off. But I went back and finished up. That is one I'm watching in English, um, and it was pretty good. The first season I think was probably better than the second. The second sort of went a little bit, it got convoluted. Like the first season was like, okay, here's a simple thing, and here's simple rules, and we go to different places, and then it's kind of done. Okay, it's easier to follow. With this second season, I just didn't know what the hell they were doing for them. Like there's like the outside stuff with the main characters relationships, and it's like, okay, I got a handle on that. But then like the core of the school, of the problem that the school gave them, I was like, I don't I don't get this. Like it's I mean, I just didn't really, it just wasn't easy to grasp for me. I'm not the smartest, otaku that there is, but it just didn't seem immediately interesting either. So anyway, but I finished that, and if they ever come up with another one, I'll probably give it a shot if I've got time. But so there's that, and then Spy Family. Um, did you get a chance to, like, how far are you in Spy Family?
Spy Family, I believe it's like episode 9 or something like that.
Okay.
Maybe 10. They just yeah, it finally started getting better now. But I was gonna say for that your previous anime though that you mentioned, Elite Classroom. Yeah, season 2, they just love to talk about the rules and the convolutedness of the game that they're playing.
Yeah.
And they got up they it's just it was a lot of just narration in that one. I felt the whole series like the whole thing was just building up to the second to last episode, his fight scene,
Yeah.
which was superb. Like it almost made the whole second season worth watching, almost. But it was a great fight scene. I absolutely loved it. It was very well drawn.
You are serious.
The fight scene where it is more is almost rotoscoped in the fact
Oh,
that how
yeah.
his actual movements.
Yeah, I
Um,
guess. I thought it was kind of stiff, to be honest. But but yeah, like I mean, the budget, the animation budget was spent there. Yes, yes,
It was the fact that it was like it did not that fight scene did not belong in that series.
yes, yes.
And
That's
and it was
exactly
just
it.
like he's just knocking these guys out, and it's very much in that almost the same vein as a Born or a Wick, like
Oh
it's
yeah,
just like they very much someone in there wanted a fight scene really bad and they got it.
yeah.
uh
It's kind of like, well, what if a genius? Well, what if a genius fought? And it's like this is how a genius would fight, and he would just like know everything. And it's kind of like, yeah, that's cool for an anime, but it doesn't really make it doesn't really make sense. Like,
It was yeah, like I said, it was just fun watching him. This I'm like, if it was more action like this, then maybe. But it was just a bunch of people just blowing hot air the entire time and posturing and acting all high and mighty. And it was just like I absolutely hated that the second season. I don't even know why I watched it, but I just did. I had seen the first season. I'm like, I guess I'm in it now. I'm hot committed, and so yeah.
it is dumb, but there's something that is somewhat endearing about those characters. At least the main guy, like I don't know, Hajino Koji, I don't know Koji, whatever his name is.
Aya no Koji, I think it
Aya
was.
no
Yeah,
Koji, that's it. And then the main girl, whose name starts with an H, I can't think of right now. Um, they're okay. And then some of the
they
other
made her weaker in the second season. She was competent and like she was like almost on par with the main character with Ayano Koji. Like they were both equals in the first season. Second season, she was literally just a puppet, just
she
on the side.
took a
And
huge step back, and they like they made her sprain her ankle at the race thing, at the school competition thing, sports competition, and she just went out. Yeah, she was way more. She still went out like a bitch in the first season, but at least she did a bunch of stuff first. In this one, she just took a big old backseat. But there was other girl characters that had to step up and fill that role, I guess. So I guess I felt like they didn't have enough time to do whatever. That show seems like a show that was where the source material was probably better, where you could just kind of cut through it and stay focused, and then just go as fast as you want to, and with the anime they probably had to expand it a bit more or do something
it's
with it.
I don't know. It's one of those anime it's very much a teen drama slash. We wanted to make this a murder game, but we didn't make this a murder game. So it's one of those Tomodachi
We're
games or
not smart enough.
Kendama or like there's a million different anime where it's like the classroom murders each other. Like let's make one of those, but let's not make one of those.
Yeah.
And yeah, so no, it's a waste of time. I warned you when you started watching it because
Yeah.
I completely warned you. I finished season one. And I'm like, don't do it.
Well,
Serves you right.
it's definitely not a primetime anime. It's definitely like I'm cleaning my house or I'm like working out, and I'm not really giving it 100% attention, which is probably why I couldn't follow the game they were playing. But I also just
Yeah.
couldn't. I could tell I didn't really care. So there's two other anime that I'll talk about really quick, and then a third that I'll spend a little more time on. So I've started watching Spy Family again. Took a big break from that. That show I really started to hate at the end of the first half of of this first season. I thought it was boring, and then I was like, well, let me fire it back up again. Started watching it in English, and English is fine. The Japanese is fine too. Um, but I kind of realized that show, that what I wanted out of that show was a spy show first and a comedy second, because it is both. Um, I wanted at least 51% spy show, but really it's more a comedy show first, like 70%, 60% maybe comedy, and then the rest is spy stuff. So once I kind of realized that that's what they were going for, I started watching it with that expectation, and I was like, okay, I can kind of enjoy this a little bit more. So once I started doing that, I was like, oh, okay. And then I just sort of finished it out. It finished fine. I think people like it way too much. I really
It's overly hyped. It is the most overly hyped anime of the season, of the last two seasons.
easily.
I'm on season. The answer to your question is episode 11. That's what I finished, dubbed.
Okay.
And the entire second season has been a bore. It has a couple funny moments, but as a whole, it has been a letdown. You're right. It is more like 70 to 80% comedy, but the comedy doesn't really hit. The fact that
Yeah.
they had such little plot that they were breaking up these episodes into two parters, and the
Yeah.
second part was just garbage throwaway. And it wasn't until the latter part where it becomes there's a couple episode arc where it's just over the top Shonen Jump, like extreme stupidity, and that was like the best part of the whole season so far. It's a stupid tennis match, and
Yes. Yes.
that was the most entertaining the entire season's been. It really has been like season one was just good. It was like, yeah, it's it has potential. It's not bad. It's not great, but it's just good. And then this one, I feel like it's dropped the ball. But people still really like it,
Yeah.
and I don't know why. So
Yeah.
all right,
So the other one that
what
I've been
else you been watching?
watching
Yeah,
is Blue Lock. So one of our friends told me last time I saw him, Robert was telling me that he started watching Blue Lock. He's like, it's pretty good, and I was like, okay, whatever. So I was like, soccer anime, whatever. I don't give a shit. But I decided to turn it on, give it a try whenever I didn't have anything better to do really, and started watching it. And I think I'm through about episode 5, and it is it is dumb, but as you would say, Joe, it's the right kind of stupid. It is ridiculous. I thought it was just a high school boys soccer anime, and that is what it is. But it is some sort of tournament battle royale type thing, kind of stacked on top of that. And watching it, I'm definitely more intrigued. It's stupid and dumb, and it doesn't mean to be funny, but it is funny. But I'm enjoying it. I'm definitely
it
curious
takes
about where it's
itself
going to go.
so
It
seriously. It
does.
like
It does.
it's like it's literally the Attack on Titan level intensity of it all, and with the ridiculousness of it, it's soccer, and I mean, this also wants to be a murder game, like you mentioned, battle
Yes.
royale. Because honestly, they might as well just the moment the losing team gets kicked out, they might as well just explode into little bits, because
Yes.
that's this it's just utter defeat. Um, and because their life as soccer players are completely done for, and so therefore they might as well just be dead.
It's like,
Uh, yeah,
why would losing this tournament ban you from being on the pro team? Like as a
don't
soccer
ask why. That's just the NDA they signed. Okay,
as a
man. We
soccer
just have to
player,
roll
I
with it.
didn't see those kids sign anything. Like, what is this even? Like, this doesn't even make any sense at all. But that's why it's so much fun to watch. So I'm looking forward to watching some more of that, and I'll probably deep dive into it a little bit later. But the last thing I've been watching, which is my best thing of the week, which you're watching this, and it's kind of a no brainer. So I have caught up with the actual legit episodes 1 through 26 of Demon Slayer. So I watched all that season, and I've actually started on the Mugen Train arc. So there's actually the Mugen Train is weird to me. I didn't know it was like this until I just about started to watch it, but anyway, so I'll just talk about the season first. Gosh dang, this show is just so well animated. And I've been reading the manga a bit as well. I am pretty much past the Mugen Train arc of the manga, so I read ahead, but I'm trying to just keep ahead with it. But I am pretty much watching it, issue per episode almost. And I can say that this anime it is it is the right way to improve on the source material. Um, the source material though is not perfect in my opinion. I think that it lacks a lot, and I think that this mangaka is a guy who's not really very experienced with doing manga. I don't know that, but that's just kind of what I feel. I think that I read some of the in between chapters where he's like, "Oh, thank you guys. I'm really glad that like I'm really glad that this manga has taken off and done really well." Um, and I'm like, "Oh, that's cool." But like now that I'm kind of reading a little bit, or I'm kind of reading the manga and watching the show at the same time, I can tell that the anime is filling in a lot of places where the manga sort of just skipped over stuff. And then a lot of the manga too is a lot of it's well drawn, but a lot of it is drawn in a very abbreviated way. So it's like you probably needed another page here. You needed another page to fill out this point, to make it make a little bit more sense, because it's easy to get kind of turned around in the manga as to what exactly is going on. But I think that might help it also. But anyway, um, so this show is really good, and they really, I mean, like I guess everybody knows that already. So I'm not really saying anything new with it, but the Mugen Train arc I've started on, and so there's two ways to watch this. You can watch this as a standalone movie, which they put out in theaters, I think, and then you can, which I know they
The
did.
highest grossing movie in Japan ever.
Yeah, that's why I think that, because it beat Spirited Away. Whenever I was like, how can this movie beat Spirited Away? But that just goes to show the popularity of Demon Slayer, which is like insanely popular. Um, but so you can watch it as a movie, or you can watch it as individual episodes. I don't really know why they did that. I guess money is probably the answer.
Usually, so in the past when they've done this with other things, with OVAs and such, for example, Gundam Wing, I think got 3 episodes opposed to the movie. The movie is just usually slightly abbreviated. They have a few extra tidbits in the TV or in the video sequences, and so it's just uh, they just edit it a little bit for the movie theater. But that's generally that's about it. From what I've known, I haven't actually gotten to the Mugen Train arc. I did season one, and that was it. I don't really care. I guess the series is good. It's beautifully animated. Can't argue with that. But it really hadn't gotten its hooks in me as far as a story. So I'm just kind of waiting for it to flush out more. And once it's finally done, as far as anime goes, like then I'll go ahead and I'll probably just binge watch the latter half. But it's just, uh, yeah, I kind of gave up on it.
Yeah, I mean, it is a bit of a basic shonen anime, or it feels that way going into it. After kind of thinking about it some more, there is kind of a lot going on there, but it's stuff that you would have to like really kind of piece together. And even then, it's not like that plot level deep. It's just sort of the way that my brain works. There's some things that I can kind of attach to it,
Yeah.
but you through the first episodes of the Mugen Train arc, man, like as good as the animation is in the regular show, I mean, it is a movie that they're trying to do with Mugen Train. They just turn it up to 11, and they composite it better, and they really go all out with a lot of this stuff. And I'm not even through all of it. I'm sure it crescendos quite nicely, but it is definitely a cool piece of media, and definitely the best thing that I've seen this week. But yeah,
Okay. So with mine, real quick, then, just because I've mentioned a lot of this stuff on our other podcasts, so if you've, there's going to be some crossover, but there's, yeah, Welcome to Demon School, Iruma-kun, season 3, uh, totally worth it. It's a good watch. It's just a simple comedy anime. Uh, Kid gets brought over to the demon world as an adopted grandchild, and he is just a human trying to blend in with the demon society. It is very much just a comedy anime. It's good though. That's I'll just leave it at that. There's They just recently started dubbing reincarnated as a sword. So, the plot twist on the whole isekai reincarnation bit, dude comes back as a literal sword. Um, I finished the whole series in subbed just because it was there, and I didn't actually think it was going to get dubbed. I just knew it was really popular for a long time, or at least I'd always see it pop up with the other manga, and so I never bothered reading the actual manga. So I just gave it a watch, and it was entertaining. So but if you don't really care to get too involved into it, the dub is coming out. So there's that. I so then one of the ones I'm really excited about, probably the best thing I've been watching this week has been uh, they finally dubbed the second half or released the second half of Summertime Rendering.
Yeah.
This isn't Yeah, so this is a good anime, simply put, with because it's filled with a lot of spoilers. So I'm not going to say anything. It's just kid goes back to his hometown because his friend passed away, and then it turns out there might be a little more mystery to how they passed, and there's also potentially monsters and time looping involved. So it's if any of that sounds interesting, if you like something like Erased, which is also a magnificent anime, then I would say give it a shot. Like I said, second half. I watched the first half dubbed, and they just dropped the second half, and I've been just pretty much I watched like I don't know 10 episodes in the last like 3 or 4 days. So yeah, I've been really going through that.
Yeah,
Yeah, and that's
summertime rendering is one of the ones on my list. It's I don't even know, I don't really know anything about it. I just have heard, like, it's just I've just seen the words summertime rendering so much that it's just in my brain. So I need to go and watch it because apparently it is, yeah, like you said, it's supposed to be really good.
yeah, and the last one is it did finish up recently, but I wanted to give it another shout out is Call of the Night. Um, it's just it's about a middle schooler who starts he can't sleep, so he starts wandering out of his house like in the dead of night and runs into a vampire, and he starts trying to just have fun at night, and it's interesting. The art style is very unique. The music's very spot on. I think yeah, it's overall from front to back, it's pretty solid. I thoroughly enjoyed my time with it, and I really like the music to it. Um, the music is done by, or at least one of the theme songs, and some of the other ones are done by uh, a rap group, Japanese rap group called Creepy Nuts, and a hilarious name. Yeah, it's I ended up getting they have a six song uh, or like single or LP on
EP, I think it'd be.
Amazon EP. Yeah, EP. I'm sorry. Yeah, on Amazon, and that sucker is only like $6.50. Digitally, it has um, the theme song that they do, but they have the full length explicit version. So yeah, it's good though. I thoroughly enjoy the music to that, and it's like I said, the visuals and everything. It's one of those things that if you it's just a chill thing to watch, and it was entertaining. But yeah, those are the things I've been watching, and yeah, now it's mostly back to you. I guess you wanted to talk to about some movies, right?
Yeah, yeah. So special topic for today. We're going to be talking about our top three anime movies of all time. Um, so I just figured we could just go back and forth. My three, then your three, two, and then one. I'm just kind of talk about it a little bit. I wanted to do this topic because I think it gives the audience a little bit of an idea of kind of where we stand, where our tastes stand. Don't want to give away what our favorite shows of all time are just yet, but that will be coming in the future, probably with the Patreon. But we'll see. We'll just have to see. Probably episode 100 or something like that. Maybe we'll finally give up the ghost on that one. But anyway, so I'll go ahead and lead off with my number three favorite anime movie of all time. This is one from, I think it's 2000 or 2001. It is called Vampire Hunter D Bloodlust. So there was another movie called Vampire Hunter D that they made in like the 80s, and it is pretty dated. And I don't think it ever got a series or anything like that, but it got a movie, and it was whatever. I'm sure it was fine. I've never seen
That
it.
original is a masterpiece, dude. I like it so much better than Bloodlust. I
Well,
will fight you on that one.
anyway, shut the shut up, Joe. Um, so we're talking about Vampire Hunter D Bloodlust. So when I first saw this, I think I was like in college or something, and I just thought this anime, just the style of Bloodlust is so cool. I don't know. It is somewhat of a weirdly drawn anime. I think the animatrix um, had a similar style with some of its episodes, but anyway, so this I don't even remember what the story really is about. I just remember thinking, "Dang, this is so freaking cool." Back when I saw it, there's probably some stuff that I might think of as better now. But I just remember the impression that it left on me. The vibe of it was really awesome. And I guess I'm going to have to go back and watch that first one. But daggone, dude, the animation quality of the first one it's definitely of a different time. So I've just stayed away
So
from it.
yeah, so the artist was Yoshitaka Amori, and that's the artist for Final Fantasy, the
Mm,
original Final Fantasy covers and such. So that's why it's very stylized and they're beautiful artwork. Like uh I grew up watching the original, and yeah, everything is, it's just a really neat concept. It's essentially the dude's Alucard is for all intents and purposes.
mm,
If you know Castlevania Symphony of the Night, he's they call him a Dunpeel, but he's a half breed vampire, and he hunts vampires, he hunts monsters. Um, and that's the bloodlust. The kind of main premise is there's the vampires are literally trying to find their own place to live, is
mm.
without spoiling too much. And yeah, that you're right though. Bloodlust is beautifully animated. I own it. The I just grew up with the original, and the original has like a pencil sketch quality. It's because it's all done before CG, so it is a very much hand drawn affinity. But yeah, the character designs, the concepts of some of the things, it's very, it's very lovely, and it's just a cool piece of sci-fi. So yeah,
Yeah,
that's a
sci-fi
solid
fantasy.
number three, I think.
It's cool. How about
Uh,
you? What do you got for number three?
so I went with so I don't have a actual solid set of like these are my top no matter what. But I was gonna go with my favorite Ghibli film, and
Hmm.
so a lot of people like they Totoro, or they span a whole bunch, but mine's probably gonna be Nashka, or Kaze no Nashka, Nashka Valley of the Wind, depending on how you want to say it. So I really like the concept art for that one. Just the once again, just like Vampire Hunter D, it was just something about that world that they drew. The How it's overgrown with, it has these weird monsters, bug creatures, the their tech devices, her flying glider. No clue how it works, but it's one of the coolest things, and it needs to be in more video games. Uh, it's just, things of that nature. Just I love the character design. Uh, and yeah, it was what I remember, just watching it and just being like awestruck. Like, this is amazing. Had really solid music for those early Ghibli films, and yeah, that one was still, it's one of the first ones I watched, and it's still one of my favorites to this day of all those works.
Man, that movie is freaking epic. It is so well drawn and animated and imagined. I mean, Miyazaki, that's probably his best world that he ever did or invented or whatever, because it is so alien and yet so like whimsical. That movie is really fantastic. It is gorgeous. I've always wanted to um buy the box set of the hardback of the manga, because he did like a full color manga with it at the same time. That guy must have been working like a million hours a week to get all that done, like ever, because the manga is gorgeous. Like every page is insanely well drawn, and it has like way more story in it than, because like multiple volumes, it has like way more story in it than the actual movie does. But yeah, that is a really good pick. That is a bona fide classic for sure.
Yep. All right. What's your number two, man?
So number two, this is another one that's close to my heart. So I grew up watching the 1986 version of Transformers the movie. Um, I rented this movie from the video store probably like 10 times before my mom was like, here you go. Oh, we just bought it. I think we actually, I think my mom actually bought it from the video store. She was like, can I buy this from you guys? And they're like, yeah, sure. And so like we did. Um, I, so people who grew up with Transformers in the 80s, they a lot of them don't like the movie because it it does a lot of really horrible things. But I didn't grow up with Transformers in the 80s. I wasn't watching this until like the mid 90s, and so I just like I this is all that I knew, and it was like it was really cool. It was really well animated. It's got a pretty tight story. It kills off all of your favorite characters. Um,
That's
but
the whole point. Is they killed everyone off, so you'd have to buy new action figures. That was the big marketing ploy of that series.
that was the thing. And I actually think that this movie, I could be wrong on this, but I think that Transformers, the movie, killing off um, a lot of its main characters, and sort of the backlash that happened there, I think that prevented GI Joe from killing off at least GI Joe. I could be wrong on that, but I think that Transformers came first, as far as the movie goes, and they were like, "Oh, that didn't really go so well, so we're not gonna do that with GI Joe." That's the headcanon that I have, and we're just gonna leave it at that. But yeah, like I just liked Hot Rod. The music, the score for the Transformers movie is really good. It is very much 80s hair metal, but it is it is just ridiculous in the right way. And that theme song by Lion is fantastic. They got a couple songs from Stan Bush in there. The Touch and the Touch and gosh, what's the other one? I can't think of it, but they had like Weird Al Yankovic, Dare to Be Stupid. I still listen to that soundtrack unironically a lot today. It is a fantastic movie. I love every minute of it.
It's one of the last, if not the last movie George Orwell voiced.
It was, yeah. It was the last movie that he was
He
ever
was
in.
Omnitron, if I remember correctly.
He was
Planet
Unicron.
Unicron, that's it. Unicron, that's it. So my
Unicron.
bad. But yeah, no, it's just the fact that I remember watching that many years later and being like, wait a minute, how did they get such a big name attached to this kid's property?
They had Robert Stack, who I think was the guy for Unsolved Mysteries. That's what I knew him from. I think he did a bunch of other stuff too, but he was in there a good bit. And yeah, man, it is a banger, a classic banger. So yeah, so that's my number two of all time. Joe, how about you? What do you got?
All right. So my number two. The All right, it's kind of weird because for me, um, I would say it's probably my number two because it's one of the ones that influenced me of getting back into anime as a kid, and it's something you should never watch as a child, and that is Akira.
Yeah,
Uh, so
man.
I remember Sci-Fi Channel used to have morning. They used to have a show like I think it was like 9 a.m. Anime, and that was before they realized anime can be bad, and so then they're like, we're gonna move it to like 10 a.m., 11 midnight, and like 1 in the morning.
Yeah,
So yeah, they continually bumped it back for a while, but for a hot while, like it was Sunday at 9, or it might have been 10, and I just remember catching it one day right before going to church, and I'm just like, I just see this whole destruction of the city during Akira. I'm like, this looks amazing. I like, and my dad's like, okay, we'll just VHS this thing, record it, and then I can watch it when I came back, and I did. Then I perpetually watched everything the Sci-Fi Channel pumped out every Sunday because I'd record it while I was at church, and that was the thing I had to look forward to. So yeah,
Yeah, I mean,
Akira. It
Akira
yeah, go for it.
is yeah, it's a pretty special anime. I have not seen it since I was, so I think first time I ever saw it was a teenager, and to be honest, I didn't really appreciate it that much back then. I started to rewatch it the other night, and I was like, dang, this is really good. It is it it's it's kind of a bittersweet thing because Akira was so amazing, but it was really only one of the few times where they really put like Disney level money behind an anime. And I would have
Okay,
liked,
that's going to open up a whole can of worms right there, because that's a big point of contention and debate whether or not because people
at
pull that around a lot.
least for that time period. Like, I mean, there's been more stuff like later, but as far as like just a mega huge budget for something that's like violent and gritty and adult and still anime, it's pretty rare. It's pretty hard to find ones that they've done that with.
So a lot of times when people mention the Disney level quality, they're also referring to how many frames, because there's debate about the quality of frame count compared to other anime, and it was actually not that uncommon to have that that quality of frame rate in other anime. It's just because this was such a big blockbuster hit, and this was one of the big pushes forward in the U.S. that it got recognized. Um, this is a lot of people's first point of reference. They're like, oh, this is obviously the first time they did this, or and it's not the case, but the quality level is amazing for this, and it still holds up, I think.
oh yeah,
Now,
oh yeah.
I have actually not rewatched it since the later DVD release slash Blu-ray release they did, where they changed the voices,
Oh,
and it's I believe the quality of the voices should be pretty solid. I'm trying to remember
you
the
mean
voice
on the new
actor.
one?
Yeah, the new one. The new one. I mean,
Okay.
the old one. Didn't really find any issues with the old one. Uh, but the new one, I'm pretty sure the voice work would have been solid. I'm trying to remember who did the actual voice work for it, and it wasn't. My brain wants to say Vash, but I don't think it was the guy who voiced Vash, and I'm completely blank. I'm terrible with names, so when it comes to voice actors
Voice actors are pretty
um
hard to memorize them
or
all.
yeah. So the one of the big things with is like the animation for this the quality of things like cloud or smoke. The smoke coverage as things are getting destroyed was really stunning, especially for back then. And it's weird to talk about things like that, but you're also talking about me watching this, I think it was like mid '90s, and just being like, wow, this blows anything that like Cartoon Network has essentially out of the water. There's the amount of colors, the quality, the sharpness, and the problem is if you're watching Akira just cold, I guess is the best way to put it. It looks really cool and has a great like aesthetic, but the story doesn't make a lick of sense. It
No.
really hard to follow because we're talking about the manga is actually volumes and volumes of old phone book like manga. So it's like maybe A4, like sheets of paper,
Yeah.
bigger than that, and we're talking about a couple inches thick per volume.
Yeah, I
Um,
think it's like 7 or 10. There's a really beautiful box set that shows up on Amazon sometimes. It's not, last time I saw it, it wasn't too expensive. It was like 100 or 150 somewhere in there, but it is a sizable thing, and there's a lot of stuff that happens. I've watched videos on YouTube about Akira the movie versus the manga and stuff like that, and that is kind of one of the complaints of even people that love it, is that um, it is an abridged kind of idea of the actual source material.
Yeah, so essentially you take 50% of it, you make that abridged, and then you only throw in sprinkles of the part that was missing. And so that's what makes it super confusing because, the first, the half of it, you're like, oh, this makes sense to a certain point. But then all of a sudden you're like, telekinesis and government agencies, and why are these people, children monsters looking blue and so old looking, and what you have no idea what's going on. Um, you know the the actual Akira namesake doesn't actually have relevance in the movie till pretty much the end. So it's
Yeah.
it makes no sense as far as trying to follow a plot, but it's amazing.
But yeah.
And it has as a kid it completely blew me away, and it's really kind of what reignited me into getting back into anime again. I mean, I like I said, I had watched a bunch of stuff as a kid, but it wasn't anything regular. And from that point on, I would, see whatever's on TV. And then shortly after, a couple years later or so, we'd have Cartoon Network started showing random spots of anime late at night. And then they would eventually get to Toonami. And then around that time is Tech TV had a spot. And then G4 eventually bought them out, I believe. And then G4 would have an anime spot, and then rarely, every now and then, MTV would show something weird. You
Well,
know,
that and Adult Swim, but Adult Swim eventually got, I mean, whenever I kind of quit watching it, it got further away from anime and more toward like American cartoons and stuff.
yeah, but I mean, we had Adult Swim. I think really kicked it up in the early mid
2000.
2000s.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah, I
okay.
mean,
That's what you're saying, yeah.
so I mean, but the Toonami was the first big one though, because they licensed they relicensed Dragon Ball
Yeah.
and a bunch of other things like that. So yeah, it was. I think Sci-Fi Channel was pretty much there first to have it on something semi regular, and they had a handful of movies, handful of OVAs. One of the ones, some of the ones I would put under here as movie, they're technically like 3 OVAs that they slapped together for that hour and a half, 2-hour TV block.
Yeah.
And so that's why in my brain, I'm like, "Oh, yeah, it's totally a movie," because I watched it on Sci-Fi during that time. I'm like, "Oh, no, that was actually like a two-part, 2-episode Sci-Fi Channel bit, and so that wasn't a movie," but my brain thinks it is. So,
Yeah, because
uh
it's all cut up anyway and by commercials when you're watching it, so it's not like you're popping in another VHS or DVD or whatever. Yeah.
yeah, for sure. So, alright then, what's your number 1 then? What's
So,
the big one?
so my number one is uh, I'll say that the other two are very near and dear to my heart, and I could pick them apart for the problems that they have, as I probably will at some point. But this one, it is not as near and dear to my heart, but it is pretty near and dear, and it is just a technical masterpiece. Princess Mononoke. Um, so I saw Princess Mononoke. I I don't even remember really the first time that I actually saw it, but I know it was the first Miyazaki film that I actually saw all the way through, that actually like went and got, and it was probably the first time where I was like, I need to know the name of what did this, and so his name is kind of comes from this movie. To me, like I know it's not his first movie, but to me this is like my first experience with his kind of movies. And Princess Mononoke is it's a technical masterpiece. It's a good story. It goes all kinds of places, and it just has this like fantastic feel to it. And I mean, it's probably the most warlike that Miyazaki ever got. I mean, I think Nausicaa is pretty close.
Nausicaa has giant war machine monsters from the Eldritch era. Um
Yeah, but it's more it's more like it's more fairy tale, cartoony, and it's just not the first time that I experienced like a Miyazaki film, or really that in anime. And like Princess Mononoke is more the gritty side of war. Not that it gets all that gritty, but it's more the, hey, this is sort of serious. This is like sort of people like fighting, and it's, it's about the forest and saving, yeah, Mother Nature, like it almost always is with Miyazaki. But it's it's just a really fantastic movie, up and down all the way through. Um, I would say that it probably gets, it's a long movie. It definitely kind of goes and meanders a bit, but man, the animation quality all the way through is absolutely fantastic, and just like really kind of like with you with Akira, it kind of made me realize what was possible with anime, and that it could be kind of transcendent beyond just like a kid's cartoon.
So what they did was this came out in the late 90s. I want to say US came out in 98 or 99 when it came out.
Sounds
'Cause I
about
think
right.
it came out in 97 in Japan.
Yeah, I think
Uh,
so.
because this came out, became the number one movie in Japan, and then I believe Titanic eked it out. Uh,
Yeah, oh yeah.
uh,
I think I read that. Yeah.
and then if I remember correctly, one other movie beat that just barely, then followed by, no, that's, I think it was Sento Chihiro. Sento Chihiro, which is Spirited Away, beat out Titanic, and then Demon Slayer completely crushed their box office. But that's all. I think it's partial because that Demon Slayer came out during the pandemic, and they were just able to kind of push it, like during they left it in theaters for well over a year. Um,
Oh, really? It was
and
just stuck.
oh
It
yeah,
was just in theaters, just sitting there. Okay, that does kind of
Spirited
make
Away
it.
or Sento Chihiro was the same though. Sento, but that was during normal times, not like. But I think people were starving for like something during pandemic time. So a lot more people for sure were going to watch that.
Yeah, I mean,
So
I looked it up one time, and what I found, well, I was like, I saw the numbers for how much money that Demon Slayer movie made versus Spirited Away, and like I was like, well, adjusted for inflation, but really, Japan's economy has been so bad since Spirited Away that actually the money is worth the same as it was back then, or like barely any different. So it really is like it just, like they made as much money, or they made more money off of the same amount of, or off of, they just sold more tickets, But I didn't know that it was I didn't know that the Demon Slayer movie had stayed in theaters for so long. I'm gonna have to research that, because I don't know. I like that movie, but dadgummit, Spirited Away is just something special, something special about it.
yeah, so I mean, yeah, Miyazaki's films are always pretty stellar, and what made Mononoke so unique when it came to the U.S. is it actually got such big U.S. voice talent,
Oh, we did, yeah.
and so you had I cannot remember her name, Scully from X-Files,
Uh huh.
um, and that was off the heels of X-Files still being really big. I mean, because we were talking about late 90s.
Yeah, this would have been pretty much the height of the X Files. Gosh,
And
what
then you
is her
had
name?
at the time you had Sling Blade star Billy Bob Thornton
Billy Bob
in it.
from Arkansas.
It was
Yep.
yeah, it was before he really made it big, but he was still like you can easily say he was a solid like B tier actor at the time.
Yeah, like maybe
Um,
A minus, but yeah, he was.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, he
he didn't
was,
have a
but he
big
was up and
role though,
coming.
so he didn't have a
Yeah,
big role though. So I think they probably threw him in there to be like, hey, he's in it, and it's like, well, he's not, massive. I remember hearing that guy's voice for the first time and being like, that's Billy Bob Thornton, just like,
yeah,
I mean,
he was
he's
he was
right.
the merchant.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, but they had a few other key names, but that was like those are the two that really stood out that were like, hey, these people are paying attention to this. It's like it's kind of impressive, and that made it more palatable to the everyday person. And it kind of reignited Studio Ghibli because beforehand, I want to say Fox had the rights to Kiki, um, and because there was already an English dub of Kiki and Totoro beforehand,
Yeah.
and then when Disney partnered with them, then they got the rights back and they re-released Totoro and Kiki with new voiceovers for that. Um, so that's is but since then it kind of especially in the early 2000s they started re-releasing all their stuff to DVD and having really good quality, and they just started bringing everything over because I remember buying it all when it came out. I'm like, yes, the new one came out, be sure to buy it. And when I was in Japan in high school, I rented all the stuff and I watched it all strictly in Japanese, and some of it was really hard to follow, but it was still really neat.
I mean,
And it was just yeah,
yeah, I think those movies were probably coming over, no matter what, at some point, just because of the times. But
it's John Lasseter, Pixar. He's really good buddies with Miyazaki,
right.
and that is what really spearheaded the movement of getting him over, I think.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, but I think that they came over as quickly as they did because of that partnership or that friendship, and I mean, because who knows, in another timeline, uh, I might not have seen those until 3 or 4 years after I actually did, and kind of would have missed the moment or whatever. So I'm really glad that they came over when they did, and I got to experience those. But yeah, so that's pretty much it for me and Princess Mononoke. But you got one more, and I think you've told me about this one before, but tell me again because I've never seen this one.
Okay, so my number one, and it's it probably is my number one. It honestly is going to be Armitage the Third. It's a Uh, it came out, it's like everyone talks about Ghost in the Shell and how crazy like cyberpunk that is, and how for the time when it came out, it was really cool. But Armitage just had such a better story, in my opinion. It really just flowed better, and so the concept is um there's a new detective who goes to a new police precinct. The twist is it's in Mars, and the new police officer is actually voiced by Kiefer Sutherland, uh, which this is before 24 and all that. So he was still a movie actor, but like Lost Boys and stuff like that. So, but you had this guy playing the main voice of your anime character, not and he did a really good job, opposed to like his Solid Snake, or rendition, or Big Boss, or I'm sorry.
That was a big
Yeah,
boss. Yeah.
so yeah, and then you had Elizabeth Berkley, who was the from Saved by the Bell,
Oh
and
wow, yeah.
I think she tried becoming an actress, and I think she was in Showgirls.
Showgirls.
Uh,
That was supposed to be her big
yeah,
break.
yeah, and unfortunately, it didn't really do it for her. But anyways, it had two big names attached to this, um, and it's just a stellar sci-fi movie. And it's kind of it's an old trope, but it's still a really good one about when you come across a machine, what makes it human, what constitutes a soul, consciousness, all that, and it was funny, had a lot of good action. The animation quality is just awesome. Once again, I saw this around 97, 98 as well,
Yeah.
and so it was by far, I thought it was out of Ghost in the Shell versus this. I always thought like this was more underrated. I felt because most people at the time would end. You're more happy with what you see the first time around. Similar with my Nausicaa versus your Mononoke, right?
Yeah.
So with a Miyazaki film, it's kind of what and I think my wife would support Kiki or something like that first. But it's kind of what you end up, what you're first exposed to. And so a lot of people are like, "Well, Ghost in the Shell, that was the first and the big one." And I'm like, "Yeah, that's true, but I think this one is overall like just a better quality." I mean, you have more straight up cyberpunk things when it comes to the neural network hacking, the augments, as it were, for the everyday people in Ghost in the Shell. But I just feel like the music and the story were just that much better in Armitage.
I think a lot of
So
I think Ghost in the Shell gets a lot of credit for advancing technology within animation that had not been showcased before. There's a couple scenes that are not really. I mean, they're technically possible, but they're would be insanely hard to do. Like there's a scene where early on, I think, where one of the robots extends their hands over a keyboard, and then their fingers all break apart and become more fingers, and then start typing like insane.
I think it breaks apart twice, actually.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
twice. It just
So
like it,
don't. Yeah,
and it's
that's a
like
great scene.
that's amazing, and but it's not possible really with any kind of budget and time constraints for a human to be able to animate that accurately. So they were using computers for scenes like that and a couple other scenes, and it was just like, oh well, like no one had ever seen that before. And if you're kind of first out the gate with that, then that is kind of what gets remembered. I mean, in a way, you're probably kind of right, because when they tried to remake Ghost in the Shell, they definitely made some whitewashing mistakes with Scarlett Johansson and stuff like that. But really, they tried to tell pretty much the same story, and it just kind of fell flat. So that you might have a point about Ghost in the Shell maybe being remembered a little bit more fondly than it should be. So I've been meaning to watch this Armitage, and I hope I get a chance to at some point. But yeah, it's
I
cool,
mean,
man.
I still think it holds up a lot. It's been a while since I last saw it, but they did make a sequel, and unfortunately, most anime sequels don't quite hold up as well. I mean, this one, the sequel isn't bad per se, but once again, it also just might be my rose tinted glasses, just absolutely loving the first and being like the second one doesn't have the same voice acting, doesn't have when you do stuff like that, it's back then it was more common. You would switch voice actors between seasons of TV shows. It was very wish-washy, I guess. But now it's like, no, we got to keep the same voice actors. If we're doing the movie, we need to do our best to pull them into the movie.
Well,
We
it's
need unless if someone unfortunately passes away, we're keeping the same voice cast, or unless if someone just goes crazy and asks for like absurd money or something like that.
well, I mean, that's just kind of the symptom, or that's just kind of a symptom of pulp entertainment, where the mainstream doesn't care. So now that anime, I guess you could argue that anime is not mainstream, but I think it's pretty freaking mainstream, especially compared to the way it was in the 90s and the 80s. It's like insanely mainstream. And so now that it's mainstream, you have more anime and stuff like that going on all the time, but you have these standards where it's like, hey, we could change voice actors in the middle of the season and that would save us money, blah blah blah. But the reason why we won't do that is because even though no one is watching our show, our studio would be destroyed and maligned if we did something like that. Because everybody on the internet would go, "Hey, look what they're doing! Look what they did," and they would just like mock us into the grave. So now that it is more mainstream, that's kind of about protection. But anyway, that's kind of neither here nor there. Yeah, it's just sometimes I go back for the money grab, and it just doesn't really work out as well. But
No, but yeah, as I said, Armitage still to this day. I was mentioning this movie to a coworker, and one of the lines in it was there's this other cop named Eddie, and he just keeps on talking, and Kiefer Sutherland just yells out or says out loud, "Christ, Eddie, will you zip it?" And the moment I said that, a guy from two cubicles away popped his head up and said, "You're talking about Armitage?" Like, because he knew that line specifically, and during high school a buddy made an email account with that. It, it's
uh,
just such weirdness behind that anime.
that's the way that
And
that's the way that
yeah.
I am with the Transformers movie. There's there's one part where uh the green guy is loading up a missile against the Decepticons, and he just goes, "I got better things to do tonight than die." It's just like it's like the most badass thing you could say. And there's a bunch of others like that, but I totally know. I've never had that experience though with saying something like that, and somebody two cubicles away knowing exactly what I was talking about. That's pretty freaking cool.
Yeah, it's just I mean, it's like I say, especially when you saw it when you were younger. It's when you're exposed to stuff like that. Because unfortunately, at the time there wasn't many things like that out there.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, hands down, probably my favorite movie. It's like there might be another. There's other ones that are probably up there. But for anime, like I said, it's usually has to be a genre thing, and that's why I threw in for my number three. Something more family friendly, or at least the Ghibli household. And
Mm.
there's a bunch of stuff I can go for days, and we probably will because hopefully this cast will last a little longer than we anticipate. At
Yeah,
least
yeah.
100, you said, right?
Let's hope so. Let's hope so. Yeah, I mean, I am not glued to this list. I could be talked off of a couple of these things. I think Transformers did stay on here, just because of how near and dear it is. But at some point in the future, I'd like to spend a little bit more time, maybe after I've seen some more things too, and see if I can see if our lists are the same. I think that'd be interesting.
Yeah, there's a few of them that I'll recommend to you that I have recommended to you, and so I'm curious what happens to like Summer Wars. Watch it. I'm just throwing that out there. It's a good one.
Okay. Okay. There's a bunch of anime that you've told me about that you're like, we have to watch it together. We have to watch it and talk about it at the same time. So I never really know, but I'm gonna start asking you about some of those that I'm okay to
Uh,
watch solo.
I'm also the weird one who tells them he can't watch certain things, and I say, no, no, you have to watch this other thing before you can watch this one because then you really appreciate this because it makes references or it has, it's an homage and like blah blah blah. So I get very weird about that sometimes.
Yeah, but I appreciate it. Definitely appreciate it. Okay, that is all that we've got for today. This here first episode of another damn anime podcast. Thank you for listening. I've been Nick Vera.
Oh, going with it. Well, you can just call me Joe.
Oh, yeah. Okay, that's fine. And don't wanna dox your last name, huh? Well, anyway, I've been Nick, and this here with me was Joe. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.
Yep,
Bye.
take it easy.